A true Swiss Army knife of war. Flamethrowers, rocket launchers, and mine flails. It wasn't the fastest, it wasn't the strongest, but it was everywhere. Was this endless adaptability the secret of victory, or just proof that the Allies kept patching a flawed design? Today we're diving into the facts to answer one question: the Sherman Tank, genius or junk? The Sherman was a medium tank, weighing around 30 tons. It stood nearly 9 feet tall, about 20 feet long, and was crewed by 5 men. Armour ranged from 30 to 75 millimeters, angled for protection, but light compared to German heavy tanks. Its early 75mm gun was effective against infantry and bunkers, but struggled against later enemy armour. Secondary weapons included .3 caliber machine guns and a roof-mounted .50 caliber Browning. Powered by a radial gasoline engine, it could reach about 25 miles per hour, with a range of 120 miles. Rolling off assembly lines in 1942, the Sherman was never meant to be the best on the battlefield. It was designed to be reliable, adaptable, easy to build, and available in overwhelming numbers. The Sherman's combat debut came in late 1942 during Operation Torch in North Africa. Against Rommel's Afrika Korps, it performed well. British crews who had suffered in fragile Crusader tanks welcomed the Sherman's reliability and firepower. At this stage, the Sherman looked like a genius design, balanced, dependable, and a major upgrade on what had come before. But as the war advanced, German armour improved. By 1943, Panzer IVs had been upgraded and new monsters, the Panther and Tiger, appeared on the battlefield. Against these, the Sherman's thin armour became reliability. Worse, when hit, many Shermans burst into flames. Ammunition stored around the hull could ignite, creating deadly explosions. German troops nicknamed it the Tommy Cooker. American crews grimly called it the Ronson, after the lighter that lights first time, every time. To fix this, later models introduced wet stowage, ammunition racks surrounded by water jackets, which cut the fire risk dramatically. But the reputation stuck. So why stick with the Sherman if it was vulnerable? The answer was simple: production and logistics. By war's end, the US had built more than 50,000 Shermans. They could be shipped anywhere, repaired quickly, and kept fighting. German Panthers and Tigers were powerful, but complex, expensive, and prone to breakdowns. For every Tiger that reached the front, the Allies could field a dozen Shermans. War is not won by the best tank on paper, it's won by the tank that's actually there in numbers. For crews, the Sherman inspired mixed feelings. Many lived with the constant fear of fire, and watching comrades' tanks erupt was a haunting memory. Some called it a death trap. Yet, others defended it. They praised its mechanical reliability, its ability to move fast, and the fact that reinforcements were always available. One veteran put it simply: the Sherman wasn't the best tank, but it was the best one we had, and it got us through. However, the Sherman's versatility was one of its strengths. Engineers adapted it into countless roles. A 76mm gun version with improved firepower, the British Sherman Firefly, armed with a 17-pounder gun capable of killing Panthers and Tigers. The amphibious duplex drive Shermans that was so crucial on D-Day. And flamethrower tanks, mine clearers, and recovery vehicles. Few tanks of the war could be modified into so many variants and still perform. So, how did the Sherman compare to the competition? The Tiger won. Heavily armoured with the deadly 88mm gun, a Sherman couldn't beat it in a straight duel, but Tigers were rare, slow to build, and often broke down. The Panther, considered the best all-round German tank, fast, well-armed, and dangerous. But production never matched demand, and maintenance was a nightmare. The T-34, the Soviet counterpart to the Sherman. Simple, rugged, and mass-produced. The T-34 was more revolutionary, but both played the same role, the reliable workhorse. And the Churchill, Britain's heavy tank, well armoured but slow, useful in specific roles but far less flexible than the Sherman. In duels the Sherman came off worse, but in strategy it was the right tank for the right war. But the Sherman story didn't end in 1945. It served in Korea, fought in the Middle East, including the 1967 Six-Day War, and remained in use by smaller nations into the 1980s. A design supposedly obsolete in 1943 lasted nearly 4 decades in combat service. So, was the Sherman genius or junk? It had glaring flaws, thin armour, a reputation for burning, and poor performance against German heavy tanks. To its crews, those flaws were painfully real. But, judged as a whole, the Sherman was a triumph of wartime engineering. Reliable, adaptable, easy to build, and available in overwhelming numbers. It gave the Allies the armoured strength they needed to win. Not the best tank of World War II, but perhaps the most important. But what do you think? The Sherman tank, genius or junk?